this is meditative shit.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we calm our mind when we do shit like that. If it's done honestly, then there's a fair chance that a lot of people will relate to it, and you don't have to explain that feeling when you relate to someone else's art.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new episode of Iblis Manifestations Podcast. I am very pleased to bring to you a new episode of the podcast, this time featuring a very special guest who is none other than DG from the Icelandic Black Metal band Misþyrming. This was an episode that I've been looking forward to bringing to you guys for quite some time, and the timing felt quite appropriate, especially seeing as they recently released a very powerful album with the title Hamri, which from Icelandic to English translates to With Hammer. And we talked about that album, of course, and various other topics. And we even got into the more technical side of music and creativity. And obviously, you know, as always, as it seems to be the case with this particular podcast, we also dug deep into the personal perspectives of such a journey, if you will. And I have to say, this probably turned out to be one of my personal highlights of the podcast, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear it. Before we continue, of course, as always, I appreciate the support. I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you are new to Iblis Manifestations Podcast, welcome. We have nothing but deep conversations on this channel with very special artists and musicians that I've had the privilege to speak to, and this particular episode is no different when it comes to that. So we appreciate the support. If you enjoy the episode, please feel free to share it and subscribe to the channel, and we will have more coming your way. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome DG from Misþyrming to Iblis Manifestations.
Yes.
All right, Dagur, my friend, good evening and welcome to Iblis Manifestations.
Thank you very much.
It's
good evening to you as well.
Thanks, man. Thanks. You know, quite a few people actually had requested you to come on this show. And I think that obviously with yourself and the new album being out at the moment, I think now's actually a pretty good time to have this conversation. But first of all, before we get into that, how was the tour? The recent one that you did in Europe?
Wow, that was fucking great. Our best tour so far ever. Like, we have actually not, like, we haven't actually done that many proper tours given that we've been an active live band for like 9 years. Like we've done 4 proper tours, and none of them were very long. So yeah.
Well, I think actually towards the, I'm going to say just before the pandemic might have been your previous proper tour, which actually happened to be with somewhat of a similar personnel, because you had the guys from Darvaza, obviously, you know, who essentially were sort of in different bands, but playing with you on this same tour.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
That tour...
Like I was just going to get in on that, like, because I just lost my train of thought. But
that's a good start.
What I was getting at was that 3 out of those 4 proper tours that we've done were organized by the same personnel, which is the Thousand Lost Civilizations, who are responsible for the notorious Naðra, Black Mass, and more awesome events in Brussels mostly.
Absolutely.
So yeah, those guys, they are on the same level as we are, and we this collaboration started through Ule Territory Possessions, because he was helping out with organizing Naðra Black Mass, and he got us booked at that festival for the last edition in 2015. And then the guys from Brussels, they decided to do a mini tour straight after Naðra Black Mass, and that had bands from the festival roster, which were Mugwa, Misþyrming, Kringa, and One Tail, One Head.
Hell of a lineup. And I think I remember that tour, actually.
Yeah, it was fucking awesome. And like the music video, so to say, for our first song, the only music video on YouTube, it's filmed in Krakow on the final night of that tour.
All right, cool.
And there's actually there's a video of Mugwa performing one of the songs from Exercises in Futility from that same evening by the same filmmaker, so you can actually see that it has the same texture.
So I might have actually already seen that. Yeah, I must have done. So
it's a proper live video. Like, it has the audio from the show at the Mugwa show, but ours has the studio. That was just a choice of the film guy. But
yes.
Yeah, I'm getting sidetracked here. The people from A Thousand Lost Civilizations, they were very happy about touring with us there in 2015, and they decided to ask us again for a tour in 2019 with Darvaza. And this one now in January was the third one that we do together. And of course, we had to have a band with Björn in it.
Of course, one of them.
He's always been there, always with us on tour. It's it's a rule by now. So this tour now in January, to answer your question, it just gets better. Like, everything about the logistics and the turnouts and, you know, ticket sales and merch sales and everything just gets better and better. So we are ecstatic about it.
I'm super happy to hear that, man. And obviously, I think it goes without saying, but it's well deserved. You know, I think just watching the progression of the band, like I mentioned to you earlier, I've already been listening since the very first album, which today is actually the 7-year anniversary for it, right?
8, yeah.
8-year anniversary. That's right. It came out in 2015. I forget which year we are in now, but that's fantastic.
I remember that date like it's my first baby.
Of course. Well, essentially, in a way, it is, isn't it? I mean, you know, the reason why I brought the tour up, you know, just to conclude on that end, is fascinating to me, because obviously the tour that you did previous to this one, which you've just done, which, as you said, was very successful, which I think is credit obviously to yourself and obviously everyone at A Thousand Lost Civilizations, you know, and it's just great to see that kind of growth for the band, you know, and I've spoke to you about that before, actually, but it's interesting to me because obviously the previous tour that you did, it happened to actually happen essentially like right in the middle of the pandemic as it was happening. And I think.
Oh, I forgot about that tour. So we've actually done more tours than I remember.
Perhaps, but that's what I was saying, because like obviously throughout the pandemic, quite a few bands did the whole live stream thing. Some I thought were actually interesting, even though I personally wasn't into the idea at first. Some were interesting, some weren't so interesting. I think notable ones to probably mention are probably Enslaved, Aztec, even my own band. We did this like live stream thing with some level of production behind it. However, I think that probably to me the most interesting one was the one that you guys did, because that was essentially, it was done out of, I guess, a sense of urgency, because you did it whilst you were in the middle of a tour, and it was just as everything had shut down. So what was the experience like for that? Like, how did you even come to that conclusion that you had to do such a thing? Because it was so new back then. This was what, March 2020, I think.
Yeah. Well, now I'm feeling guilty because I just told this story in another interview, but I'll say it anyway because it's fucking funny.
Sure.
This tour was organized by a Russian guy called Oleg. He's fucking awesome, and he wanted us. Mostly he wanted to bring us to Russia, but he knows some organizers in European countries that are like adjacent to Russia, or in close proximity. So we did Lithuania and Ukraine and Belarus, and the final show after we went to Russia, that was in Tallinn in Estonia. So like the tour had been organized a long time before we ever heard about this new scary virus. So the news were just getting out around the same time we were packing our bags, basically. And like that the virus had reached Europe and all that. And we just carried on. We weren't very concerned about it at the time, and we were super excited about the tour. So we were like, yeah, fuck it, no flights are canceled or anything, so we'll just go through with it. We go to Lithuania, do the show, everything good, and then we fly straight to Ukraine the day after. When we arrived to Ukraine, we hear that Lithuania closed all their borders right behind our ass. And then we do our show in Ukraine, everything good about that. Go to Minsk in Belarus, and there we hear that Ukraine has closed their borders. And again, that happens when we're in Russia. Belarus closes their borders. So it was literally like a fucking domino falling behind us, and we were just on the run.
Interesting.
And like we would have been stuck in any of those countries if it would have been a day later. So we finally go to Tallinn, and they are about to close their borders. But first, before closing their borders, they decided to do some lighter regulations, like banning events and gatherings. So the show was basically canceled the same day as we arrived. And the organizers for that show, really cool guys, Damn Loud Productions, shout out. They just acted very quickly and hired a whole crew with there were like a few people on cameras and a full sound crew. And we did that show. Like we agreed to do it, and we talked to them like, okay, so how are we gonna do this so that everybody's so satisfied about it? And we were like, okay, well, we can ask people like to order merch or offer them to order merch, like the people that were gonna go to the show. So they set up some order online and some charity, because there was like some logistics that had to be covered from the budget. and it all worked out. It was fucking awesome. And I think the best thing about it was that there were actually like 15 people in that room, which was mostly the crew. And I think like they cheated and let a couple of friends in. But yeah, just having that small crowd gave us so much energy rather than standing in front of silent cameras. That would have been a bit more uncomfortable, I think. And you know, we strive off the feedback of the crowd all the time. If we're playing in front of a dead crowd, we go off stage, or at least I'll speak for myself. Like when I get off stage and the crowd has been sleepy, I'm like, it's disappointing. So yeah, this was excellent, and we had to fly through Sweden on the way back, like a transit, and don't remember the details, but like when we arrived in Sweden were closing their borders, and like this was a total fucking mess, and we were getting very anxious to get home, but it all worked out.
That's fascinating, man. I mean, what are the odds? There's so many things that could have gone wrong in the way, I would imagine. I mean, you know, and I get exactly what you're saying about the crowd interaction part as well. You know, it's good that you were able to have that, because it's like, I mean, I don't imagine how anyone could be sleepy at one of your shows, but at the same time, I get what you're saying, because you give it so much, you know, and you like live and breathe the music and just project all of this fucking energy, and you need some back, you know. It's like an invisible thing, you know. There's no like, it's not a substance you can hold in your hands, but you do feel that kind of feedback.
Like we are giving so much from just ourselves, and it's very personal playing these shows. And when you see that glimpse in the eyes of the crowd, that they are really enjoying the moment and just, you know, fucking carpe diem of death, and that makes me like go to bed with a smile on my face. So yeah, when you're giving so much from you, it's not fair to expect people to be thankful, but when they are, it's a
bonus.
It's satisfying, so to say.
Yeah, no, I fully hear you, man. You know, and you're actually like, this is one of the things that I always very much enjoyed about your band, is the way that obviously you yourself, you compose pretty much all the music, and you even mix and record it. And when you watch the band live, you can see that obviously there's a unit and there's a band, but you personally, you look like you're living the music. You know, it's just like, it's as if it's in your bloodstream, and it somehow like just comes out of you in that sense. And I think that's a fucking special thing. You know, I wish more bands and more artists, you know, we were able to see that more regularly from this genre, because that shows you it's genuine. You know, it's not that you plan on a piece of paper, hey, on this part I'm gonna headbang like this. No, it's just like this explosive vehicle. Like one way that I always used to I guess a bit of an analogy for your music in particular is, to me, it's very much like a vehicle of hatred, of like almost like but then there's so much explosiveness that is coming out of it. It's almost like it's always on the verge of breaking, yet it still somehow moves forward, you know. And it's like super rageful but anxious at the same time, and I love that about it, you know. And I think that to me is something that was present on the first record, and the second one, and on the third one is even more. I think the rage side of it seems prevalent. I don't know if that's an analogy that you can relate to at all regarding
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And you know, just I found my purpose in life pretty early on. I knew that I wanted to become a musician, and I don't know, I'm a very passionate guy in general, at least about the things that I care about. So I strive for writing good songs, and if I write something that's not satisfactory or kind of dull, it really bothers me, and it stays in my head maybe for weeks. Or like even the final song on the new album, it took me a year to finally figure out how I wanted to finish writing it, because I wrote only half of it to begin with. And things like that stay in the back of my head for a long time. So when I finally get that satisfying result, like that, then I'm that's like the best thing for me. And when I go on stage, finally, like that's where I'm presenting all this music that went through all this process of me being not satisfied and then working hard on making it satisfactory, and then taking it onto the stage and just exploding through it.
Yeah, that's
the best thing in the world.
Yeah, I like that, man, and I think you use the word passion, and that's exactly, like just leading up to this conversation, obviously I was listening, revisiting all of your releases, and I was like, passion is I think actually a key word when it comes to your execution of what it is that you do. And I guess that's actually the part that resonates with myself personally as well. I mean, I remember, just speaking about your first record as well, I remember listening to that and being like, man, this is, because you were, 23 years old, 22 years old when you made that record or something? I think you were around that
Even
age.
younger.
Yeah.
And I wrote the first couple of songs and half the song on the Sinmara split when I was 20.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So even before that, Hoff is a very interesting song, by the way. It would be cool if you play that live again at some point.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I'll let you in on a secret.
Yeah.
We actually might. I just came from rehearsal right now. We were trying it out. Like, okay, we could actually do that.
Fantastic. I think it would work.
Don't tell anyone.
Really well.
It's gonna be a surprise.
Yes, of course, no one listens to this podcast anyway, so we will be fine. But yeah, that's cool, man. That's great to hear. That's in a slightly different tuning as well. Is that like on drop C or something?
Yeah, it's the only song.
It's the only one you've got that's
drop C.
Yeah. I know this is musician talk, probably. Yeah.
But that's totally what the listeners want to hear, I guess.
Yeah,
like fans ask me all the time what's our tuning and all that. Like, yeah, but I've actually written more songs in drop C, and that was most of it was for this Solan Varma thing.
Okay,
that we played at Roadburn. We were commissioned to do like something original that was not necessarily Misþyrming, but maybe just a new project or just a one-time thing. So we actually like wrote 70 minutes of music, and most of that is in C drop. I really like the drop tuning for change, but it never really fit for Misþyrming.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, man. That's cool about Roadburn as well. They always do stuff like that where it's completely unique to the ROM, which I love that about it. But also not to get sidetracked as well. That's really the thing. When I was listening to your first record when that came out, and for a first album, I actually think it was quite successful as well. It was very well received, and it obviously gave you a boost. And but the thing that I was thinking at the time was I was having a hard time imagining how a second album would sound after that, and this is just from me as a listener. And when your second album came out, I was like, okay, this is perfect. Yeah, this is exactly where I would have hoped this had gone. But then I still had the same thought of, well, I can't, like with a lot of bands, sometimes you can sort of generally guess the direction that they're going. But with the third one, I was like, yeah, I still don't know where that's going to go now, looking back at the previous two.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but the thing that I like the most about it, I mean, besides the fact that the songs are fucking flawless, it's just so vicious, but it's just somehow on your third album, you've managed to create probably both musically and lyrically the angriest record that you've made so far? Would you say that's an
Yeah,
accurate
I can
description of this
totally
one?
agree. Yeah. And and I think musicians that are generally satisfied with their output throughout their career usually prefer their latest release always, because that's the most recent triumph. And you know, I always want to outdo what we as a band have already achieved. So I had a big vision for Algleymi, and basically what I wanted to do with Algleymi was not to really continue from Söngvar Elds og Óreiðu, but rather make a new album that kind of outdid everything on the first album. So there was quite a lot of like polarization between people if it was better or if it was not, because I guess like when you have only heard one album, that's your whole picture of the band. That's what you painted up in your head. So when you get a new album, there's a change. And if you're making too high expectations, anything that's a bit far off in the overall sound, or any detail that might be a surprise, can be a disappointment if you have set your expectations too high.
I think a very good way to perhaps put this, or at least this is the way I personally always look at it, especially when it comes to listening to new music, is when you've got musicians like yourselves where you can trust that the process is going to be genuine. I think that you can very much reflect on the whole thing of art imitates reality, meaning that perhaps what's going to be coming out is a reflection of the inner state of the artist which is creating it. Does that make sense? So if
it's the absolute truth.
Yeah.
In my case, at least.
Yeah, for sure. But that's exactly where I'm coming from, because you can trust that that's just how you feel at that time, you know. So, you know, the thing is as well, you know, life is not life is fluid. It's always moving, you know, and we're always changing, and sometimes we come back to where we already were before, but perhaps through a different perspectives. And just because I guess where am I going with this? What I'm trying to say is that there can be life experiences and whatnot that can lead you to a place where you can actually want to create something that's even more aggressive than you did before, you know. Because a lot of times you'll find that, I'm just speaking to you like as a person, you'll find that you'll be going through some experiences, and obviously as an artist you would be more like a sponge where you just like take in experiences, and your reaction is essentially that projection of music which you have. So you might think that's
like we are always mirroring all our like you can't make a black metal record and just pretend that you are inventing something. Like it would have been invented in the 50s if somebody could just come up with that. Like there's some development throughout the history of music where one guy discovers distortion, another guy discovers the double kicker, and then some teenagers that really like partying and drinking start mixing this shit together, and then we have Kill 'Em All. But Kill 'Em All is way before we get well, not maybe way before, but you know, it's a bit before when we get shit like the Mysteries, where you know tables have fucking turned. So we are totally just mirroring all our inspirations all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, like,
I think
one of my favorite quotes was a guy that told me, like, if you want to sound original, you have to hide your influences. Or like you have to, like, if you have just one influence, Like there's the discussion about all the bands that sounds like Death Spell Omega.
Death Spell Omega, yes.
Like it's been a fucking discussion for over 10 years. And they fucking changed the whole sound of black metal, so to say. So I think, you know, bands that are only listening to Death Spell Omega and then make an album, like everybody's gonna say, yeah, it sounds like Death Spell Omega. So like you should have many inspirations and kind of make it a bit foggy, or you know, don't be too obvious about it if you want to sound original, which I don't always do.
But I think the thing that I was pointing at, yeah, absolutely, to your point, that's 100% correct, I think, you know, and that's actually something that I've been thinking about a lot recently. But the thing that I was coming from, obviously you use those influences, but at the end of the day, you use them in a way of expressing yourself personally, or rather, like you said, mirroring your own experiences and your own psyche into that. So the point I'm trying to come across here is, with this being your angriest album yet, what, I guess, what's your own sort of, I suppose, source, I should say, of this anxious rage, which is buried in this record, which was there in the previous ones, but somehow it seems more prevalent in this particular one?
I'm not sure if I can really dive into that topic. Like, it's of course very personal to me, and I think it could even ruin the experience of listening to the album if you know too much about it. And that's poetry in general. Poetry is mysterious, or at least what I consider interesting poetry. Like all those, when you paint the picture with words and then the meaning behind it is something totally different. Yeah, you call it metaphor. Haha, that's the word. And so yeah, I even myself, like I've been asked this question before, and I can't really point at just one simple answer or conclusion to that topic. Like I am just like that, and I'm not gonna pretend that I'm a hard guy and or I'm a hard guy all the time, because I'm a fucking human, and like we are all humans, and we have emotions and we have hormones and all that shit that fucking explains our behaviors. And everybody has a different life story, and there is sadness and there is happiness and everything between. And yeah, I don't know, that's maybe what explains the very melodic sound on Alglimi. That's a very emotional record, and you know, being in the black metal community, maybe it's a bit not cool to even acknowledge that, but I would prefer to be honest about it. And rage, I don't know, it can be fueled by testosterone, and you can see a lot of that in the whole metal community. It's mostly guys, and guys don't deal with their problems as well as women, I guess, or they are more keen on keeping things inside, and then they just fucking explode sometime. And that's my outlet, and I guess everyone in the scene can relate to that.
100%, man. That very, very accurately put, actually. And this is so okay. We're on the same page, and I very much respect your response to that as well. And I do agree that to some extent you wanna keep the. I suppose sometimes you just wanna let the music speak for itself as well. You know, I'm just naturally just a curious person, and I'm always trying to, you know, like kind of dig deep, you know, and it's not to say that the music itself isn't satisfactory enough. Oh, absolutely, it's fantastic, but just for me, I'm always poking. But I actually think what you said is perfect to that. And you know what you said as well, I mean, I'm a big advocate of this. Like, it seems to me that like you've already like figured it out, but very much like I think at least my understanding of black metal, especially, has also been that there's a multitude of facets involved with it, but a very big important part of it is perhaps a projection which you can use for the emotional toxicity that actually builds up within you, which there are no ways of expressing them, or perhaps you aren't equipped with expressing them, or the fact that some of those emotions are simply too dangerous to express. So perhaps it's better to put them through the filter of this volatile but also extremely deep style of music.
Well, being craftsy, be that writing music or lyrics or just fucking writing a diary. This is meditative shit.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we calm our mind when we do shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's important, and especially when it's art, but something that an outsider can observe. If it's done honestly, then there's a fair chance that a lot of people will relate to it, and you don't have to explain that feeling when you relate to someone else's art.
Yeah,
that's kind of my justification of not going too deep into my lyrics, because either you get it or you don't.
But also the fact that every person who will listen to it, literally every single human being that will listen to it, will have their own perception of it as well. And I actually think that's one of the most interesting things about music, period, actually.
Yeah. And you know, Nietzsche, he did not want any people to be a tutor on his works. Like he said, you're not supposed to teach it. Everyone has to read it and interpret it their way.
Yeah.
That's inspiring for me.
For sure. And I guess that when you write certain lyrics, I mean, for example, just the title track from the new album, you know, to me, like if you read the lyrics, obviously you've got the English translations available as well for anyone who doesn't speak Icelandic, but which is probably most of the people in the world. But you know, like when you read that, is to me it almost sounds like poems that an Aztec death whistle would write if it was a person. That's the kind of you know, that's the kind of the sort of the feeling that I guess invoked in me when I was reading some of the lyrics, you know. And it's very much, it has a pugilistic sense. I mean, it's very interesting, just the whole style of the album, the titles, you know, how the first you know, it's Med Hamri, I believe, and then Med Harmi, which is with hammer, with sorrow. And the actual sound of the style of these songs and the lyrics perfectly convey that, I feel. And it's, I guess it's that state of the duality between them as well, you know, is that when it starts,
exactly.
Yeah,
that's also happening on Al Gleymi between the last two songs, Al Sæla and Al Gleymi.
Correct.
It's same idea, and I think I was inspired by Thomas, my bandmate, on these wordplays, because in Naðra, where he is like an artistic director, he's playing with words all the time. You can see it on all the Naðra song titles, and he's like shown me some working titles for stuff for the future, and they're even like to some extent it's even funny.
Yeah,
but I think it's also clever. Like it's witty in not too serious sense. You know, I'm not trying to sound smart. It's just clever, like witty.
Sure, I got you. So it's almost
you're
like
allowed to have a bit fun.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so it's almost
don't have
like
to be stiff.
Yeah, it's like a pun pretty much.
Yeah. Basically, but still with total seriousness, because these are heavy words. And Icelandic is very related to English, and með Harmi, the second track, it's the same word as harm in English, but the literal meaning has changed a little bit between them. Harm, of course, means some sort of damage in English, but in Icelandic it means sorrow. But the original root is the same, and of course the same with Hamri as hammer. That's obvious. And I don't know. I really like to get sidetracked, and I think I have some ADHD, although I never got any confirmation on that. So just you bear with me, and the listeners also. I just get sidetracked all the time.
You gave a perfect response to exactly the thing I asked, man. It's all good. And I think a little bit of that probably makes us like, I was actually, I've been contacted by people about this more recently, in regards to ADHD and whatnot. And there's definitely, if you look into more the scientific aspects of it, there seems to be some very interesting thing that, for example, people with ADHD, obviously, as a disclaimer, you never want to self-diagnose or diagnose someone else just because you think they might have it. But generally speaking, one thing that I found was interesting, which also made me think I should probably get checked, is with a lot of ADHD children, especially, they'll find that obviously their attention might be completely scattered, and there's like constant like hyper sort of chain of thoughts that are constantly jumping from one tree to the other. However, if you can find that child or person something that they can completely get their dopamine response out of, then they can get that lost in one thing and stay focused for hours on end, and they'll get completely
here's
lost
a guitar.
in that. There you go. Yes, that's exactly. But
go out, play football, and they go out, play football, and they scab their knees and like go crazy, and then they take the guitar and they hammer it for hours. And I think like this ADHD thing, it's so fucking common. So like I just casually diagnosed myself, and I casually say it, like I'm not really caring about it. And I don't think you really need to get checked unless you really feel like it's haltering you in your life, like if you can't get shit done or you're always late to work and shit like that, then maybe do something about it. But casually diagnosing yourself, sure.
Well, I think what I'm saying is interesting is that generally you will find, like, I think that the connection between that and this style of music, and perhaps certain other style of music too, but this particular style, I think it must be astronomical, because like if you're like find yourself, I'm sure you must have spent hours and hours and hours of your life behind a computer screen or with a guitar, either recording or composing. And like you said, for example, the song that took a year for you to make, like when you just get lost in the moment, and then it's sometime in the midnight, or you see the sun coming up, and you've just been in that moment and completely lost track of time. That, I think, is something special, but then nothing else in life can grab your attention that way, I guess. I mean, I'm making presumptions, but it's coming from a point of relatability. I don't know how accurate that might be for yourself.
No, it's and this is where it can actually become destructive, because I've been working hard on something on the computer, and then I have something else on my schedule, like meeting someone or just going to sleep. And I will definitely be late if I'm in the zone writing something. Like, I'm not losing this moment. This is I'm writing the wave while it lasts. And like I've been sitting in front of even just like when we were making the new album, like there were many nights where I looked at the clock, because I realized like I was falling asleep in front of the computer doing some edits or whatever. And I realized like I've gone far beyond my physical power just on my mental power.
Yeah.
And then I have to drive home like totally deranged from the studio. And it's the same like when you go meet a friend after having been in such a session, and you're like, okay, I have to keep my promise, like we made plans. Okay, I'll go downtown and meet you for a beer. And then you show up and your head is still in the studio, like, oh fuck, I wanted to make the floor tom a few decibels louder. I gotta remember that tomorrow.
Yes.
Should I take up my phone and write down a note, or no? I will remember it. I will get back in the zone. Like, this is fucking disturbing you from having a genuine conversation with your friend at the bar.
It's a fucking problem, man. Like, I relate to that so much as well. It's like, you know, or I don't know if you, I presume if you might do a normal job or whatnot, but for me it's a nightmare being in that place because I haven't got my guitar and my laptop in my hand. So in my head I'm like constantly making phones on my notes, you know, like phone will be ringing. I'm like, yeah, 1 second, hang on. Make sure to add this extra bar here. And it's always stuff that if someone else read it, it wouldn't make fucking sense. But I'm like, yeah, so make sure that you put fret 3, but do it as an extra octave on top of it, and play the tom here just to stop, and then kick into a blast beat afterwards. And then
exactly.
Yeah.
But this mentality gets shit done.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think this is what Lars Ulrich was doing back in the day when he was still cool. Like, he was responsible for a lot of the greatest success in the beginning of Metallica's career. And that's just because he was always doing this and that, and pitching this, or talking to some, I don't know, booking shows, booking this, booking whatever. And, you know, this sort of intense, hardworking mentality, it's purely driven on passion.
Absolutely, yeah.
And of course you can have a psychiatrist diagnose it as ADHD, but if you want to be poetic about it, let's just call it passion.
The thing is as well, man,
and creativity.
Absolutely. But the thing is, you might be spending all those hours behind a computer, you might be losing sleep, it might be affecting your social life or relationships, which for me it certainly has done in the past, you know, and still does sometimes, because it's hard to be present when you've got so much going on up there. But you know, at the end of the day, you're still creating legacy, and that is something that becomes bigger than yourself, because those songs,
it's fucking paramount.
Absolutely. Yeah, and those songs, they'll live forever, you know, in other people's hearts and ears. And eventually there won't be any people left on the planet. But, you know, it still feels like you somehow make your mark and make your dent in reality, in history, in existence, by creating that music and exploding it out there.
Yeah, so perhaps you're being a bit selfish about your creation when you're sacrificing relationships.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't know, who cares? This is life.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta, you know, like sometimes you are given a choice in life. I find like the way life works, like I'm even more and more convinced that we are in a simulation of some sorts, because it's like the further along that I go, it seems that life very often will present you with a very obvious choice, and it's the hardest choice to make. It's very hard to go, okay, I can see that path leads down this way and the other path leads down this way. Which one do I choose? And you always think, you know, like, will I regret this how many years down the line, or would I have rather if I did this? You know, there's always these fucking dilemmas, and there's, like, karmically speaking, just like anything else in life, it's not an endless abundance of substances. Like, you can't just have everything in life. And I think sometimes you just have to choose to compromise one thing for the other. And these are always hard, whichever way you decide to go. But that's
pick your battles.
And you got to pick your battles, yeah. And this is what shapes your history as a living being.
Yeah. I love it, and we are definitely in the simulation.
Yeah.
We're so fucking deep in the simulation. How many times today have you wanted to check Instagram, bro?
I don't know, a few times. Mine stopped working earlier, so I was just like, yeah, good. I don't want to talk to anyone anyway, so I was happy.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
Oh yes, absolutely. I know what you mean, man. There's so many different things you can look at.
But maybe let's not go there. that might be just a fucking depressing topic.
Yeah,
but you mentioned the Aztec flute.
Yes.
Did you notice it on one of my songs?
What, you actually got it on a song?
Yeah.
All right. Fucking cool. Which song?
Orgia.
Is that what that is?
Well, the intro, the 3-second long intro it's a mix of sounds.
Right.
But one of them is the Aztec flute. I got so fascinated about the Aztec flute in general when I heard about it, which was around the time I was writing Alglemi. And I read about it and I thought it was so fucking cool to imagine like a whole fucking army of Aztecs riding on horses, just ready to pillage. And the enemy hears like hooves, hundreds of hooves stepping and running towards them, and the sound gets louder and louder. Very, very, very nice build up or tension, and then all of them have these flutes while riding their horses into battle, and it's such a fucking eerie sound. So I bought myself a very good replica of an original Aztec flute, and it works like a charm. So yeah, I got it from eBay. There was even a note with it, like a certification, like how fucking authentic replica it was. And yeah, it's in that song, not only in the intro, but in a few other places.
Well, this is exactly the part that I was going to ask. I mean, first of all, to what you said, there's actually a YouTube video where there's a simulation of what the whistle sounds like on its own, and then what it sounds like when you can imagine a full tribe of Aztec murdering motherfuckers coming at
like
you,
layers.
and all of them. Yes, yeah. It's fascinating. I've seen that. I recommend people to check it out. But on your song, on that one, there's a part that it's got a melody later on though, but I could never tell because it's the one guitar layer. It's the that's like it comes on later. Is that the part where you've got it? Like, because it almost sounds like he's playing some notes, or is that like just some kind of choir? Because you've got a guitar lead. I don't know if I'm explaining this well.
Are you talking about like we can call it the chorus riff?
Kind of, yes, yeah. It comes on later.
Synth. That's a synth.
Right. Okay, cool.
And I wanted it to sound like a choir, but not quite. I wanted it to be a bit more distorted and machine sounding. So, you know, I totally distorted it. And the original synth sound isn't very human-like to begin with.
Sure.
So, and I'll let you in on a secret. When I wrote that song, I was trying to make fun of black metal to begin with.
Okay.
I really wanted to make a generic sounding song. So I decided to write a simple riff, and then do a simple lead guitar on top, and then do some keyboards. Because everybody likes keyboards, like Emperor. I never liked Emperor.
Interesting, right? Okay.
But then I used to be in choirs, and I really appreciate harmonies and just I really do like when bands use keyboards on top of their black metal music, especially Leviathan or Dark Space. So
yeah, absolutely.
So
or I think Earthfaust are probably a good example of that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I was totally listening to that when I was starting to dive into the depths. But just to clarify that this song is not a joke, the idea started off as a joke, but then I got into the zone we were talking about. So I started tending to all the details and trying to make some I don't know what you would call it, decorations or minimal things that actually make the whole thing more dynamic. And then I just realized, okay, now I just got a good song.
Yeah.
And it was actually so good and catchy that I decided to have it as an opening track.
It's a great song. I mean, I see where you're coming from with like kind of the simple-ish lead at the beginning. It's just like and then it just picks up and becomes more complicated as it goes on. That's quite interesting. Also, is there 2 vocal tracks on that album, or like the way you've mixed it is super fascinating, because it almost feels like the vocals kind of sit around the track in a way, whereas normally you just kind of get a direct thing from the middle.
Before I answer, would you say that it's a positive thing? Please be honest.
To me, I only care that it sounds good. And as far as I'm concerned, the vocals sound fucking great on that album. So yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
well,
In that sense,
I would, if I had to be critical, I would say it sounds kind of weird. It's very
okay.
unorthodox. Like, just if I would observe the album and compare it to other contemporary black metal albums or modern black metal albums,
I think it sounds cool. Yeah.
Yeah, basically, I was recording this album when I was studying my sound engineering. When I was doing those studies. And I just bought a shitload of plugins, and I was so fucking interested in all of them. And I think I just went overboard. So basically like I there's this. So now we're gonna get technical, which is gonna be interesting for a few people. But I basically bought this plugin package from Sound Toys.
Right. Okay.
And they made their most famous plugin is called Decapitator, and I've heard so many people worship this plugin because it's the best digital distortion plugin, or at least it's become like legendary. So that's kind of how I got into that. And they had like this Black Friday offer or something. You can buy all of our plugins for $200. I was just like, well, let's go. So I bought all of these plugins. And
so when you say distortion, was that distortion for guitars, or you mean for vocals as well? Because that almost sounds a bit distortion.
It's just a plugin. And
right. Okay.
So I will just tell you, like, at the same time when I was studying there, one teacher of mine told me I put distortion on everything. And I mentioned this in the Bardo methodology interview that was released for the new album. And yeah, so this teacher, he told me just put distortion on everything, not only the guitars. And I realized how much it affects everything. And that's what's fascinating about old recordings back before we had computers, that everything is distorted in those old recordings, but it's not intentional. And that's sort of what creates that charm. And it's the same with the tape saturation, and saturation is essentially distortion. So
that's right. Yeah.
So I kind of adapted this to my protocol, or however you want to describe it. And this guy, he's fucking hilarious. He used to be like touring with the biggest hardcore band in Iceland called Minus.
Yeah.
And he even brought a distortion pedal that he put on the master on the fucking mixing desk on huge festivals.
Bro.
And like the organizers of the festival were like coming to him like, dude, you are destroying our equipment. And he was like, nah, this is rock and roll. Like he's fucking hilarious. Like fucking inspiring guy. And this sort of approach, this is fucking rock and roll.
Man, I can
just
only
put
imagine.
the fucking distortion pedal on the fucking master on fucking Download Festival or something like that.
The fucking feedback that must have come out of that must have been insane. Holy shit.
I'm pretty sure he managed to do it without feedback, actually, because, feedback is mostly caused by monitoring. So the master is only going to the PA, but let's not go too deep into those details. But this sort of attitude, I like it. Yeah, you want to be raw, you want to sound harsh. Let's be dirty. No showers.
All the way. Yeah, man, no prisoners taken. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, but back to the vocals. Basically, I think the most strange thing about the vocals is the chorus effect that I was using, and this is why you are asking me why if I have doubles. And chorus is basically just doubling or duplicating the vocal track and putting the duplicate just a pinch off tune.
Yeah.
And then putting it into stereo. So when you have headphones, you hear like there's a big stereo image, and this is essentially the effect that it makes. But I was going so fucking wild with those plugins. I was so happy about them, and they fucking sound great. But maybe I could have been a bit more I don't know, content with it. But who gives a fuck? This was the mood I was in.
Yeah, I think it sounds fucking great, because that's actually the thing. It stands out when you listen to like other albums, and then even other albums yourself. But then you listen to that record, the vocals sound different to almost any other sort of black metal records I've heard. By the way, just as a quick point as well, I think it's probably important that I mention how I even, or when I should say rather, that I actually discovered Misþyrming as well, because as I mentioned to you, I've been listening to the band since the first album, which in hindsight is probably not that long ago, but still, I think it makes a difference. And it's that, obviously...
It's 8 years.
8 years, man. That's right. And obviously that 8 years is a fucking long time, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, in the context of, I suppose, metal, 8 years is probably not a lot, but I guess that's still like 8 years of your life that you've just completely dedicated yourself to doing this. But I just wanted to talk, because you're obviously the first guest I've had on the show from the Icelandic black metal thing. So let's just talk about that a bit, because obviously, for me, or I guess for a lot of people, our first impression of the Icelandic black metal was Flesh Cathedral, Sporty Dowdy, which is just a fucking insanely powerful record, and it's still like, I think is worth a lot of praise, because it's just like one of the fewer times where metal successfully not only became angry and desolate, but it became fucking creepy. Like I think a lot of times throughout music, we make metal creepy by way of intimidation, whereas I think those guys with that particular album, especially on some of the more dynamic, slower parts, they made that kind of creepy essence come out very well. And so obviously that was kind of my impression. I think maybe around 2014 I discovered that. And then Sinmara dropped A Photic Womb in 2014 as well.
Yeah.
And that was also something that added to the bank of Icelandic black metal. Then come 2015, you guys come in. And then you drop your first album, and then that, at least, I don't know if I missed any important thing but in my world, that was sort of like the real gist of Icelandic black metal, especially at that time. So, what do you think was going on? What is it with Iceland? How is it that such a small place, essentially like kind of far away from a lot of other things, ends up producing such a very interesting but also intricate and just a very unique style of black metal out of nowhere, and all bands sounding different to one another respectively as well?
Well, you know, 90s black metal was very interesting in general. And then when we go post-millennia, the first 10 years after 2000, that's a totally different thing that happened there. And I think both of those decades really shaped the general conversation in Iceland about black metal in general. Of course, it sounds stupid when I say it out loud. You know, this is essentially at the time the only black metal there is to talk about. So
yeah, correct.
I like, to put it simple, I would just think that Norma Evangelion Diaboli gave new fucking fire to the idea. And this is a bit before my time, because I didn't get into the scene until around 2010. So around, I don't know, 2005, my friends in Svartidauði were going to Wacken to see Dissection. And I was still just a little boy listening to Rammstein and discovering Metallica. So there was this forum, Icelandic metal forum, like very general metal, but still very focused because it's a small community. And when Norma started spitting out awesome album after awesome album after awesome album, I think that kind of dominated the discussion over there. And like, I don't think Svartidauði are original in that sense that they are creepy, because all that stuff that was being released by Norma Evangelion Diaboli was already so fucking creepy. But what made Svartidauði especially unique was probably the psychedelic elements that were not present on the... We could say that the Norma Evangelion Diaboli stuff was more straightforward or more in your face, less spiritual or ritualistic. And this is, of course, where bands like Urfaust come in as an important inspiration, because they are totally psychedelic.
Sure.
So I think this forum pretty much kept this very small scene together in agreeing on what was fresh and what was good shit. And what was the question?
No, I mean, just I think just going off of the just how that kind of scene even came to be, which I think you responded to perfectly.
All right. Yeah. So Svartidauði they started in, I think, 2005 or 6, and they were already pretty avant-garde in Iceland, being so well informed about all the fresh new stuff that was happening in Europe at the time. And they just fucking nailed it. And then we also had a few more important bands like Carpe Noctem and, I would say, Fingal, which is sometimes forgotten about because they kind of disappeared pretty fast. But those guys were in the north of Iceland, so they weren't even socializing with the rest. Just in a small fisherman town, brothers who had their own black metal bands, and they were only listening to Finnish stuff like Baptism. That's quite interesting. And then when they did a few shows with Svartidauði, we the scene realized, like, oh, this is interesting. And then a few years pass, and my generation enters, and then Svartidauði and Carpe Noctem and those bands are already very respected, and their shows were so fucking sinister and gloomy, I would even say. Just fucking, there was something magical about it.
I remember very precisely back in 2015, because originally I'm from Iran, and the very last time I ever went back to that country was that year. And I remember specifically being sat there with these two twin brothers. They're from this band called Kamarika, and they used to be called Persian Forester Black Metal band.
From Iran.
From Iran, yes, yeah.
All right.
And there's not many. But
Persian black metal. That sounds fucking sinister, man.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so we did. I actually was recording a song with them. That's why we were there. It was like anti-cosmic Persian black metal, but we were fucking
super love it.
Yeah, yeah, man. It was a very, very cool experience recording something back home. For me, it was very special. But I remember specifically being sat there by their computer, and obviously all internet is like filtered and blocked, so you have to use VPN. So we jumped on the VPN, went on YouTube, and I was like, guys, I basically was giving them this kind of prep speech because I still, by that point, I had already moved to the UK, and this was the last time I was going there. So I was feeding them some of the things that I had learned over here. And I actually was telling them, I was like, guys, I know that like the corpse paint and the inverted cross thing is cool, but there's better ways of doing black metal. What you want to do, you want to embrace that darkness. And I was showing them live footage of Svarti Daudi, I think, from this festival in like 2012-13, when they all still had when they were like covering the faces and whatnot. And I was showing that to them. I was like,
was it not
this?
the Death Cult Festival in Germany?
It might have been,
air?
I think. Yeah,
I'm
2012.
Sure.
They've got some like good footage from that. I think there's some footage from like Blasphemophager at the same show as well, if I remember correctly. But I was showing them that, and I was like, guys, look at this. This is how you do it. Look at how fucking creepy this is. And they were both like, oh shit, yeah, wow. So there's different ways of doing this, But it's just like I bring that up because it was interesting to me, and it's just like the impact that had, and how essentially, obviously, like you said, they'd been building up since 2005 or 6, but really it all seemed to happen within like a very compact few years in the early 2010s, where it really kind of blew up around that time.
Yeah, well, you might be right about that if we're talking about internationally, but they were already doing insane shows in Iceland in 2008.
Oh, okay, sure.
So it just took them just a couple of years to get on the international market, but here in Iceland, we waited for Flesh Cathedral. There was so much anticipation for that.
All right.
And like they had this demo, those who crawl shall slither and inherit the earth again. That's half of the album. In a rehearsal recording, and that was like that demo fucking captures the atmosphere at their shows. Like I prefer that to the studio recordings. That shit is
very interesting.
Dark.
Sure. All right.
So that's 2010, that demo, and that's circa when I was getting into the scene. So after that, people here in Iceland were just waiting for Flesh Cathedral. And then I remember it leaked. It actually leaked. Fucking cult underground band leaking. That's not very normal. But when it did, Jesus Christ, we had a party.
Right.
We had a ritualistic party. Like, now we're going to drink a beer, smoke a joint, and shut the fuck up for 45 minutes.
I like it, man. That's fucking great. Yeah, I mean that's a real that's a special thing, because I guess not many people might be aware of that aspect of that whole thing being birthed into existence, and it's a fucking special and powerful thing. Speaking of Svarti Daudi, what happened with Drottin? Nothing coming from that band anymore? Because I know you guys did a really cool demo, but is that not going to be going any further?
Dude, I'm so proud of that demo. It's
really cool.
we somehow managed to reach some sort of intensity that I thought was unimaginable. And I was like breaking a lot of the rules that I had set for myself for writing Misþyrming stuff. I thought cliche death metal was very not welcome into Misþyrming. I might have changed my mind about that today, but at the time when we formed Drottin, I was like, okay, no rules. We're only gonna listen to Destroyer 666 and Judas Priest, and see how much fucking testosterone we can pack into one riff.
Fuck yeah.
And then we just keep writing riffs. But yeah, well, I shouldn't go into those details. Like, it just didn't work out, and we just decided to disband the thing. And it was around the time when COVID was happening, so everybody was kind of not into, you know, when you already have some cool shows planned and everything is canceled, and the next few months you don't even know how long it's gonna be. Like, it was a bit dark. So something just died there.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, man. And sometimes as well, you just can't force it. You know, it's like, it's, as the saying goes, art is like a fart. If you force it, it's probably shit. And and I think that see, but I think that you guys captured something really special and powerful on the demo. And
we have more songs in our archives.
Yeah.
So let's just hope they might surface someday, but don't get your hopes up.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting? Because like you said, just talking about the Icelandic thing, and I'm not trying to like get into your head here, but I'm just talking statistics more than anything, right? So
yeah.
If you look at it, and Spotify isn't everything, right? There's a lot of things you can't even measure that go beyond selling merch or how many listens you've had. But let's just talk specifically on statistics. When you guys broke out, Svartidauði was essentially like the probably most important black metal band of Iceland at that particular moment in time, you know. And obviously, like you said, the whole buzz around everyone waiting for Flesh Cathedral in Iceland, that's a special thing. You look at it now, obviously, unfortunately, they're not around anymore, which bums me out. I wish they were, but, you know, I'm sure we've not seen the end of those people as musicians completely. Hopefully not anyway. But you look at, obviously...
I wouldn't say so.
No?
Absolutely not. But continue.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. The thing that I was saying is, if you simply make a current day comparison of the statistics of Misþyrming against Svartidauði, it's quite an interesting contrast, actually, because I don't know if you have ever made this or if you've ever even looked at it like that, but I think the numbers are like quite considerably higher on your end of things, which, and I'm not saying that to say like one's better than the other, that's not where I'm getting to, but I just think it's interesting that perhaps had they stuck around, they could have done better, but also how fucking amazing it is for you to basically come some years after them, yet still achieve the success that you have achieved, having started in that scene. Does that make sense? That's the point.
First of all, it's just a great honor to the 17-year-old me that I would even be put in the same place, or not I, Jesus Christ, Misþyrming, my band, that we would be put in the same I don't know, same rank as Svartidauði, because they were fucking gods. They were the fucking shit. They were untouchable, and people talked to me today saying that the big three of Iceland, that's Svartidauði, Sinmara, and Misþyrming. That's kind of unbelievable to me and really humbling. But at the same time, at the risk of sounding arrogant, I'm very happy that my hard work came this far.
Of course.
And I'm proud of that. And I think like you said it in the beginning of our talk, like well deserved. Those are your words. I'm not going to repeat it after you, but you know, we are really happy that all those years of hard work and dedication and passion have gotten us in this place, and we don't take it for granted, but we fucking celebrate it.
Fuck yeah.
I don't know, like, yeah, well, Svartidauði, like they had their ups and downs, and it resulted in the band just disbanding, so they are not here anymore. And I can't really go into those statistics more than that. Of course, it's just an observation, but you know, the statistics don't always represent the reality, because like,
I do agree with that. That's actually what I was saying is
I've actually been abroad so many times with Svartidauði, like Misþyrming and Svartidauði being booked at the same festival at the same time, and just seeing the crowd that's showing up for Svartidauði. These are not necessarily the same people that are making comments on YouTube. These are not necessarily the people that are doing all the streams on Spotify. These are the fucking guys that buy the fucking vinyl and sit alone and don't tell anyone about it, because they don't feel the need to express their opinion to others, which is so fucking boring. And
yeah,
this is what you see when you go to a show. And the Svartidauði shows were fucking potent. They were untouchable.
Absolutely, man. Listen, this is exactly why I made the disclaimer of I'm only talking about numbers and statistics, you know, because that was
right. You don't have to make excuses.
Yeah, no.
But of course, it's interesting that Misþyrming has tenfold streams on Spotify compared to Svartidauði.
So you have looked at it, of course. Yeah,
of course I have. Of course I have. It's fucking interesting. You release a new album and your followers double. You're like, fuck. But that's not why we are doing this to begin with. It's just very nice to see that people actually appreciate your hard work, and that's fucking awesome. I love it, but that's not why I'm doing it. But every time I meet a fan who tells me or describes to me why my music has moved them, I am humbled, and I think it's fucking awesome. And when I meet a favorite artist of mine, I would love to be able to also display that to them, like, you really moved me, and I play the guitar the way I do because your music inspired me to do so, etc. So yeah, bottom line, people at Svartidauði shows, they know what's going on. The people who actually show up, and they don't represent the numbers.
100%. Yeah, fuck yeah, man. I mean, listen, I'm a diehard metalhead. Like, to me, the thing that speaks to me the most is the passion and the fire that's shared in a room, and it might only even be...
and everybody else who who appreciates the music for some other reasons, they, in my mind, aren't very welcome. And now I'm I'm just quoting Giuseppe from your interview with him.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't want those people to listen to my music. They're not supposed to listen to it. Like, the genuine people who fucking dive into it, and I don't know, could even go as far as being in a trance at a show, just really fucking living it. Those are the fans that matter.
I do recall a story my bass player telling me, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this. I think, like we said before, you've already met my bass player at your tour recently, but he was telling me about watching Svartidauði in London, and there may or may not have been a considerable amount of MDMA involved in his system before the show. And I remember him...
What year was that?
Was that 2020? I'm not too sure. No, I think it was before that, if I'm correct.
Okay, never mind. Continue.
How so? What relevance does 2020 have to it? Oh, was that the cataleptic rites that you guys did? Yeah.
It was one of the 2 Drottinn shows ever abroad.
That's right.
Or ever at all. And Svartidauði and Misþyrming were there, so that's why I asked.
Yeah,
but your friend was at the show.
Yeah, my bass player, he went to one before, and he fucking, like, he keeps saying he ascended to Al-Jannah, which in Arabic means the heavens, but in Islamic words, but of course he didn't mean it in the Islamic sense. But no,
it's probably haram.
Haram, yes. Everything that we do is haram, as I'm sure Bjorn must have told you by now. But he fucking that London show as well that you mentioned, that was organized, if I'm correct, by Rat King Records, who then actually ended up becoming our label for a little while after that. Great people. It's a shame they're not doing it anymore. Yeah, they're not doing anything anymore. But yeah, just talking about sort of the, I guess, might be a bit of a fucking cringe word, but the uprising of Misþyrming and where the band is headed. I saw that Nurgle had given you some feedback, and he was telling you that he really enjoyed the album. How do you feel when you hear people like him say something like that, especially coming from our generation as well? Because I think you and I are actually a very similar age. But how do you feel when you hear someone like him complimenting your music?
It's cool. I've actually known him, like with quotation marks, known him, like we're not friends or anything like that, but we met a couple of times here and there. And first time we met was when they played a show in Iceland in 2015, and they decided to record a music video or film a music video in Iceland.
Ben Saharit, I think, if I'm correct, right? Yeah.
And do you know who directed it?
Who directed it?
Sturla from Svartidauði.
Did he? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
And
that's a person who I'm anxiously waiting to have on the podcast, by the way, and he knows it, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah. So we met at that time. And he was just very, very excited about the scene, just like you told me you were around 2015.
Yeah.
And he sounded actually genuine, even though he's being accused all the time of being not genuine. But like he clearly had dug into it, and we had a very nice talk, and he's just been following the band ever since. And like I met him backstage a few years later at Brutal Assault in Czech Republic at the catering area. And he was just putting some salad on his plate next to me, and he turns around like, "Hey, it's you." And I was even surprised that he would remember my face, because he's such a fucking huge celebrity and probably meeting people all the time. But he
celebrity is actually an accurate word. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, he is. He absolutely is. And at that festival, Behemoth and Misþyrming were clashing. We were playing at the same time.
No.
And he was sorry about that. He was like, I wish I could have seen your show. I hope we're not stealing all your crowd. But fortunately, we had a full show. Right. So I guess I guess
maybe you stole a bit of theirs, huh?
Yeah. Let's just say that. Sure. Yeah, but
that's cool.
Well, I don't know. When it comes to validation like this, of course it's pleasant, and I'm not gonna fucking pretend like it's not, because I could be like, I don't care about Nurgle, blah blah blah. But he's a fucking legend in the game. Like, no matter if he's posting selfies on the toilet or yoga shit, I don't care. Like, it doesn't really help his reputation or his band's reputation, more importantly. But a dude like that recognizing underground shit and just making an honest comment, just like, great album, you guys don't disappoint. That's what he said. It's fucking nice. And it's also fucking nice when a random person says the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
just a nobody. So yeah, it's totally cool. And I respect him as an artist. Like I almost mentioned him earlier when we were talking about outdoing, like we were talking about the Misþyrming albums, like me outdoing Söngvar when I was making Alglemi, and then outdoing með Hamri, like always trying to push it further. And when I said that an artist's favorite album is always their last album, I was actually referring to my first conversation with Nergal, because he told me, well, I asked him, what is your favorite Behemoth album? And he told me it's The Satanist. And this was a year after The Satanist was released. And I was like, that's kind of a boring answer. You just made it. Like, can't you observe your whole discography and pick out a favorite? Of course, I didn't ask him that, but that's what was going on in my head. But yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this.
No, but I understand what you're saying is that it's I guess to the point I was making earlier as well. It's your fresh and current expression which brings you to the point that you are, and as we keep treating this, it's art. I think that's probably a very key element here.
Yeah.
I'm
No, you continue, please.
No, carry on, man. You're the guest.
I was just gonna boast, like,
you can boast all you like.
When I've gotten notifications on my Instagram that Wolves in the Throne Room or the Black Dahlia Murderer, like official pages, are following my band, I'm like, whoa. So when a few years pass where this is just a regular occurrence, and then Nergal comments on our new album that it's not disappointing, I'm like, it's starting to feel normal, but it's still humbling at the same time. But I don't know, it's the most fair way to put it would be that it's not surprising, because it's happening so regularly. But I would never want to become arrogant about it and be like, yeah, of course he likes it, we're fucking awesome.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I get that. I think you're letting yourself down the moment you start to think like that as well anyway, because then you could release something and then people might not react the same way, because
you go to the studio and you're like, studio and you're like, no matter what I do, it's gonna be awesome and people are gonna love it. So where is your drive?
Yeah.
Then you're gonna make a load, and then you're gonna make a reload.
Listen, that's so important, man. You see that with so many musicians, where just because they have an audience, they're like, yeah, I can just throw a few riffs together. Doesn't matter. They'll fucking buy it anyway. We just need an excuse to tour. Fuck it. Doesn't matter. Yeah. And then you see, you see that, sometimes if they're good enough as business people, then perhaps they can prolong it in some ways, but it just doesn't quite have the same impact. It's a lot, to me, it's a lot like an MMA fighter, actually, or a boxer. The moment that they get confident, they get knocked on their ass, and that's exactly. And it's
you get
like,
careless.
What happened? What went wrong? What could I have done better? What I thought I had it. And that's
they say the same thing in construction when you get the forklift license, which I do have, and this is why I'm saying it.
All right, interesting.
When you get the forklift license, you are the most trusted forklift operator on the area, because everybody else who has the forklift license is already too calm to realize that they are operating a dangerous machine that could actually kill someone if you operate it carelessly.
Yeah.
So the one who just got the license, he's paying attention. He's making sure he's going at the right speed and all that noise,
For sure.
Just a metaphor.
No, it's interesting because how many videos of forklift drivers have you seen where they've completely fucked up the entire warehouse or something like that because they drive into a thing that's like, I can't imagine anything worse, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but and essentially that's what we're saying. Like, if you get overly confident, or rather comfortable,
you're
gonna become boring.
For sure. Yeah, nothing wrong with being confident. In fact, you should feel confident, because if you don't think that what you're gonna do is gonna be the best thing ever, then you probably shouldn't even fucking try, you know. But it's that obviously you want to compete against yourself, and you first and foremost, rather than focusing on what others are doing. And I
so
mean,
you shouldn't be comfortable. Never.
So exactly. Never be comfortable. Never think, oh yes, of course I figured this out. I know what the fuck I'm doing. No, fuck no. You're only gonna let yourself down. I think the moment you start to think that, and it's good.
So how do you actually go against that if you're starting to feel comfortable? You're in the studio, you're writing some riffs, you know that the mics you have are nice, like everything is pretty good. And how are you how are you gonna keep it intense when you feel comfortable in this situation?
Are you asking me personally, or
like,
do you mean? Yeah, well, actually, there's a very good antidote to that for me personally. I know it's gonna sound cliche, but my sort of anchor in that is the gym, and I'll explain to you why. Because when I go to the gym, just like I was before we had this conversation, I go in there, and yes, I've got a set of routines to do, and I train hard. But to me, I don't train so I'm comfortable. I train so that I'm struggling. And when you purposely bring yourself to a point of struggle, yes, it's a physical exercise, but mentally it grounds you, it humbles you, it gives you a reality check, it tells you exactly where you are. That's why I always, like whenever my band is playing a show, wherever it is we're traveling, or when I do those shows, I can't wait to get back home and go back to the gym, because I can feel that there's a part of me that kind of goes like, yeah, okay, I'm all right, I'm good at this. And it's good to have that conversation with yourself sometimes, but that should never be the ending point. I always come back and I humble myself. I reinsert humility into my my thought pattern by going through tough physical exercise, and afterwards I feel much more level. And it's like I don't feel small afterwards or anything, quite the contrary, but like it gives me like a reality check, if that makes sense. And that reality check allows me to stay on track and stay hungry, if that answers your question.
No, yeah, and I could even like resonate with that. Like I go to the gym myself, and I'm not very interested in talking about that at all. But if you would put that picture into the studio setting, it's basically like, well, I feel comfortable playing my guitar. I'm writing a riff, and I can totally manage to play it. Like maybe that's a point where you should be like, well, maybe I should write a riff that I'm not comfortable with playing. Yeah, that was totally the case when we made the new album. This shit was a fucking challenge to do, and we rehearsed so intensively before we started tracking it. It was insane.
Yeah, it's. I mean, technically speaking, for sure, it's definitely a level above that. And I guess actually, what that is, it's like, so if you go to gym, then you'll understand this. But essentially, it's like a musical progressive overload, if that makes sense.
No.
Okay.
Progressive like overload. Well, okay, yeah, it makes sense.
But you know what I'm saying is, because essentially it's like when, for example, the analogy is that if you're at the gym, you're lifting weights, throughout time you want to go heavier so that you feel more resistance, but as a challenge your body will also adapt to it and perform more difficult things. Yeah. And I think it's the same with music, where if you keep pushing the boundaries of going to places that you're uncomfortable, eventually you're going to be able to nail it down fucking right. And then now you have an expanded horizon and a new edge in your performance and what you can
and you already concluded this with one word, and that's challenge. And you should challenge yourself.
For sure.
Make it a bit hard. Make it a bit uncomfortable, because if you will survive that, you might actually have something good going on.
So can we expect you to sing some opera on the next album then, huh?
Oh, shit. Well, I'm actually working on some new stuff right now that's gonna be so far out of the box.
All right, that's cool to hear.
Yeah,
nice.
And what makes I'm not gonna say more about the actual content of that, but what makes me happy about that approach is that I'm doing something that I am that's new to me. But still keeping it a bit familiar, so I know what I'm doing all the time, but I'm pushing the fucking envelope. I don't want to repeat anything. I want to progress into whatever direction I might go into, as long as it's exciting. There's nothing exciting about repeating yourself.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, fucking, that's good. I'm intrigued to hear that, actually. Yeah, sounds interesting. I think maybe keep that particular part just right there, so then we can perhaps sometime from now people can revisit the episode. It's like, that's what he was talking about. Hopefully, if the plans come to fruition.
Well, I can at least say that the next thing you'll hear from Misþyrming is not gonna sound like anything you heard before from Misþyrming.
Interesting. And you've already, like we've discussed throughout the conversation, you've already progressed quite a considerable amount each time you did what you did. So I think that's good. Speaking of, like, obviously I jokingly said opera, but I love some of the fucking manic, insane screams that you had on the title track, man. Like, that's
thank you.
I love it. Like, it's just so fucking like, the only other reference of something similar to that I had in mind was perhaps this song Voices of the Dead by Repugnant, which that's got like lots of different like voice effects and whatnot on it, but this was just like totally fucking chaos. Like, it's like the song itself could almost give you an epileptic shock or something like that, I feel.
Oh, that's interesting. The only times I've been compared to that band is just how I look like Tobias Folk looked when he was on stage.
It's the haircut, man.
Short hair and covered in blood.
That's it.
That's interesting. No, well, I think I might have actually been inspired by Andavald, the Icelandic band that only released one album, and I recorded that album. And like during the vocal tracking of that album, it's one of the most intense tracking experiences I've ever had. Like, the vocalist went absolutely nuts in the studio, and we were like two or three more guys in the room, and we after some takes we were devastated. It was so insane.
What was happening? Insane. Like, what's in what sense was it, like you said, devastated? Like, in what sense did it even go that far? Was it just how he was performing, or was he doing something whilst recording, or what was going on?
Well, first of all, the person in question is a bit of a lunatic.
That always helps, sure.
And the music. The music she makes is her musical outlet is always with it has this taste of insanity all the time, no matter if it's dark ambient or black metal or whatever. And during
maybe related to some Diamandagales or something, perhaps?
No, I wouldn't say so. Like,
right.
This was just like, and the lyrics are also very personal.
Oh, okay, I understand.
And terrible in a sense. Like, this is really truthfully dark shit, and just sitting in that room, watching this person perform their lyrics that come straight from the heart, from a very dark place, and just snapping, just losing their shit into the microphone. That was intense. And
what was the name of this band again?
Andavald.
Andavald.
Yeah. The album cover is purple. It sort of resembles Lurker of Chalice in a sense. But, you know, I would say the band sort of sounds like Aris Menta, if you know that band.
Aris Menta?
Yeah, they're from the Black Twilight Circle scene in LA, which has like Volan, bands like that. Well, you don't have to know it. Never mind.
Perhaps not, but
I'm sure that many of your listeners know this, so...
I'd feel pretty fucking stupid if my listeners know more than I do, at least in the majority. But actually, no. Tell you what, if anyone actually knows this, then come and tell me.
Yeah.
I'm not too big for that. Okay, very cool. Yeah, I'll have to check this out, man.
Definitely one of the best black metal albums made in Iceland ever.
All right.
It's terrible.
Really cool. It's
terrifying.
terrible.
Yeah, and terrible in that sense.
And which song was it that you had this experience with, or was it like the whole thing basically? Is there a particular
the
track?
album is basically 3 songs plus intro and outro, and it's the middle track.
The metal one. Okay. Well, to me, it sounds like it would be the kind of release.
Goes manic, laughing, just laughing.
Shit.
In madness. It's crazy.
I like it, man. Well, to me, that sounds like the kind of release you want to listen to from start to finish anyway, rather than just pick one part and
no, you have to listen to it from beginning to end.
Absolutely, man. What's the... Obviously, we'll round things up soon as well, but my curiosity is endless, so I just wanted to fucking ask you some more about this new record as well. What's the deal with the front cover? Or actually, I'll rephrase that better. The front cover is very fucking interesting. It's a super striking image, but it's also very unusual, I think, for a cover. Is there a particular meaning behind the building that is on the cover?
What feeling does it give you?
Well, actually, for me, it's very personal because I can go into that actually if you like, because it might not relate to your reason for putting it there, but
I'm asking because I'm curious to hear if my point got across.
Well, for me, the way I look at it is I have a very specific memory, which I related to. So perhaps it might not be connected, but I think it's interesting to talk about it anyway. So many years ago, I had a geometry teacher, and he was actually a bit of a cunt. I didn't like the guy, to be honest with you, but I recall him telling a story of how somewhere in this central desert part of Iran, because obviously Iran is like fucking huge, you know, we've got all kinds of climates. We've got forests, mountains, deserts, seaside places, like we've got all of those, but
yeah.
He was saying that some of the central desert parts, that there was this city where there was a building, and essentially it was like a hollow entrance. And obviously they had no cameras or anything there, but essentially at a certain point at night, they would only ever hear screams from this building. And anyone who went inside the building would never come back out again. And it was just like a thing that in this town that no one would go into. And that story really stuck with me because there's something about it that just seems like endlessly terrifying, because, you know, like what do we fear as human beings in our psyche? The unknown. And that to me is like the epitome of that.
It's a Lovecraft principle.
For sure. And you know, the thing that should not be, exactly. And that to me was a very striking but very terrifying kind of thought that such a thing could even exist. And that, you know, like looking at your album cover, I never saw a picture of this place, but it kind of looked like essentially a European sort of manifestation of what such a place could have been. It's the terrifying unknown. That's kind of what I got.
Very
from
interesting. You know, the architecture is obviously inspired by Greek architecture. And that was basically just a template for me to work with when I was discussing how to make the artwork with Manuel Tinnemans, who painted it. But the actual, like the Greek reference has no significance in the overall idea, which it obviously doesn't have for your interpretation either. And it's just the overall picture that I wanted to paint with this was something that was very big and very unwelcoming. And there's a great fence in front of this structure, and the fence also represents this like you cannot enter. And this is something far bigger than you. And that's sort of the total message with that picture. It's not that complicated in that sense. It's supposed to be dark and it's supposed to be unwelcoming.
I think it actually works perfectly, but it's such a genius idea. It's so unusual for black metal to have such a thing, but I think it does give that sense. And in fact, based on what you've said, I think that actually works quite well with my own personal analogy of it as well. And not analogy, but impression, rather, because it reminded me of that thing. Because that building, which I thought of, never in a fucking million years would I ever consider going in there. You know what I mean?
No,
but
and there doesn't have to be a very big idea behind the thing. Like, that's again where we get to poetry. Like, the artwork is also poetry. The feeling that it gives you, which I think the artist managed to manifest perfectly, gives you your own head space, or the space in your head to feel this unwelcoming feeling, or however it actually strikes you. Bottom line, like, it's supposed to be I don't know, resentful, like, you know, just there's nothing positive that strikes you when you see it.
Well, I guess that's actually perfect with just even like some of the lyrics in the title track, where you say our enemies are met with hatred and loathing, and there's that sense of drawing a line, you know, and
right.
Yeah, I get that.
So that's correct.
Yeah.
You piece the puzzle together.
Ha! My friends tell me I'm a detective, so perhaps this is what I do best.
Yeah, very good. Well, but like this makes me happy to hear that at least one person in the world observes it and feels something from it. And I know that there is it's far more than one person, but right now I'm hearing it from you, and that really gives me some sort of satisfaction towards just looking back on when I was forming this concept. And the concept is, of course, far more complicated than the artwork. The artwork is just imitating the overall image, which is essentially the purpose of artwork, I guess.
Absolutely, man. And like I said, it's well deserved.
Yeah, and the same goes for the other albums.
Sure. No, that's fantastic, man. And listen, I mean, fucking, you know, I've got nothing to hide. I think what you guys are doing is absolutely fantastic, you know, and really happy to see the progression that Misþyrming is making, not just from the music industry perspective, but artistically, and how you're able to convey those emotions across so well. And tell you what, I cannot wait to fucking share the stage with you guys in September in London, man. That's gonna be fucking cool.
Yeah, that's gonna be fucking something. Let's have a beer.
Sounds good.
Or 3.
I don't really drink beer, but I can switch
Whiskey.
it for Ethan. we can have ethanol if you like, because that's what I used to have when I was 15. Used to mix it with apple juice because alcohol's illegal in Iran. You know,
we'll work out those details when the time comes.
Absolutely, brother.
Fuck yeah, man.
Yeah, should be fucking killer. Dagur, just as we kind of wrap things around here, is there anything you need to share with the audience in terms of like where they can check out and follow some of your work, or anything you want them to be on the lookout for?
No, but I can tell you, I would love to do this again.
For sure.
We could continue just chatting, and if somebody likes listening to that, then fucking great.
Fuck yeah! I think this has been an awesome
enjoyed
episode,
listening
man.
to your when this idea came that we would do this podcast. I listened to a few of yours, and I really enjoyed it. So if somebody will enjoy it as much as I did listening to us talk shit, then fucking let's do it.
Fucking awesome, man.
I think we should mention that this conversation was initiated because some of your Instagram followers suggested it. So
that's
thanks,
right.
guys.
Yes. Yeah. That's actually been happening for a while, man. You know, that wasn't the only time people have said you should come on, but I'm glad that we were able to make it happen, man.
Yeah. And, this was the instance when I saw it. So I texted you like, hey, let's do it.
Yeah. That's it, man. No, awesome. Thank you so much for jumping on, man. I've enjoyed the fuck out of this, and you're welcome to jump back on again anytime.
Awesome.
Yeah, fuck yeah, man. And to everyone else for listening as well. First of all, thank you for suggesting Dagur to jump on, and I hope it's been worth it, because I enjoyed the fuck out of the conversation, and I hope you guys did as well. So yeah, we'll leave you with that, and see you guys on the next episode of Iblis Manifestations.